Hey, the good news is the Boston Bruins won on Monday, beating the Dallas Stars in a shootout. The bad news, it was a pretty subpar homestand overall, and they're now heading out on a pretty tough Western Conference road trip. Let's break it all down on a jam-packed episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Tuesday, February 20th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. Free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. We have a jam-packed episode today, friends, as we took yesterday off because it was a holiday, President's Day. If you're south of the border, up here in Ontario, it was a little thing called Family Day, kind of a made-up holiday to give us a day off in February because, let's be honest, it's a long winter up here, and we need these breaks to help get us through it. So I took the day off. We ordered in some movie popcorn, watched Trolls 3, which was not bad, actually. We finished up some homework and just took it easy. But we are back. And, of course, watched the Boston Bruins defeat the Dallas Stars by a score of 4-3. Now, there were quite a few storylines in this one. First of all, the Bruins had signed Justin Brazeau to a 2-year, two-way contract and recalled the veteran minor league forward for his NHL debut, and he made good on it. He was a driver on a play that led to Jesper Boqvist scoring the opening goal of the game. It was a new look fourth line that the Bruins were deploying. Boqvist, Anthony Richard, and Brazeau, the newcomer. On the first goal of the game, it was McAvoy who got the puck to Anthony Richard, who set up Jesper Boqvist for the goal. Brazeau was on the ice and was ecstatic to be part of the game opening goal. But later on, he scored his first on a play from Jesper Boqvist and Trent Frederick. And, getting those two goals from depth forwards for the Bruins early on was huge. Now, they did rescind a couple leads in this one. They were up 1-0. Dallas tied it. They were down 2-1. Boston tied it. But then Dallas went up in the third period on a goal from Esa Lindell. But thankfully, at 18:15 of the third period, David Pastrnak tied it with Brad Marchand getting a secondary assist. So while the new look fourth line, Richard, Brazeau, Boqvist, they were instrumental in the first two goals. And Brazeau, just an incredible story. He scored 61 goals in 68 games in his final year in junior. Went undrafted, worked his way up from the ECHL to the AHL, now to the NHL. His debut game, he scores a goal, and the Bruins end up with the W. Now, also, this game featured celebrations for Brad Marchand's recent 1,000th game. And it was cool that the Dallas Stars were in town because it gave Marchand an opportunity to be on the same ice as Tyler Seguin, who's a good friend of his. They won a cup together. That iconic picture of Bergeron after scoring in Game 7 against the Maple Leafs with Seguin and Marchand on his wings. And in the tribute video, it was hilarious to see Seguin say that he was so impressed by Marchand's ability to succeed in the NHL and also be one of the best looking players in the game, which was a pretty funny thing. And it was cool that Seguin was able to be in the building while that video aired. But Marchand showed up in this one big time. He got the secondary assist on the game tying goal. Also dropped the gloves in this one with Joel Hanley. So showing no signs of slowing down. Now it was Jeremy Swayman who came up huge in this one, made 43 saves and 8 additional saves in the shootout to end the Bruins 4-game skid. They had been 0-2-2 over their last 4 coming into this one. We'll discuss coming up the homestand overall and how it wasn't especially great. He said it was pretty special. He was facing Jake Ottinger, the other end of the ice. They've got a great friendship. Seeing him hold the fort down on the other end, Swayman knew he had to rise to the occasion, and he said it's one of those games you're going to remember for a long time, and he certainly enjoyed it. The Bruins obviously wanted to get a good effort here for the captain, for Brad Marchand in his 1,000th game. He got, the Tiffany gift before, the silver stick, a Rolex, tribute videos. And it was cool to see a guy like Justin Brazeau, who's put in the work, getting the goal. He said it was a cool feeling, a long time coming. He's worked hard to get there. And to see that kind of come full circle, it feels really good. And especially meaningful in Marchand's 1,002nd game, where he was feted for that accomplishment. And just these guys see what Marchand puts in and the work that he does to stay fresh, to stay on top of his game, to remain one of the top wingers in the game. And it rubs off on the whole organization, as we saw with Brazeau coming up. Now, the Bruins, probably didn't deserve to win this one. They were outshot 46-30. Both power plays went 0 for 2. And Dallas largely outplayed the Bruins. But Boston was able to get the job done. In fact, Dallas, in all situations, they had 57% of the shot attempts, 60% of the shots. Scoring chances were a bit more even, as were expected goals, and that's a testament to, Boston keeping Dallas kind of outside those high danger areas. Dallas had 82 attempts, but only 19 high danger chances. And the scoring chances were pretty even. So overall, a solid effort from the Bruins, getting the W and finishing what was a subpar homestand on a high note as they begin a Western Conference road trip. We'll discuss what the homestand looked like as a whole here coming up. But again, congratulations to Marchand on the 1,000th game. Congratulations to Brazeau for the NHL contract and for scoring his first goal. And he will be with the team as some moves were announced here on Monday morning. And we'll touch on that here as the podcast continues. All right, the football season is well behind us, but FanDuel is still all over the game when it comes to betting on basketball and hockey. You can get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. You can bet on all favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Thank you so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, we recently launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube called Locked On Sports Today. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV on the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts and national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. So the Bruins just had a 7-game homestand, and overall, it could have been better. Let's be honest. Over those 7 games, the Bruins went 2-3-2, earning 6 of a possible 14 points. That's a .429 point percentage. So not great when you're playing all these games at home. They managed only 2.14 goals per game. They allowed 3 goals per game. Their power play was pretty atrocious. In fact, since the All Star break, the Bruins rank 31st on the power play with a success rate of 8%. 8%. That's brutal. And the Maple Leafs, they're at 58.8% since the All Star break. If you want to compare top to bottom, the Bruins' penalty kill has not been great either. 68.4%. That's 27th in the NHL since the return from the All Star break. Now, in terms of shots per game, they're averaging only 28.7, which is ranked 25th, and they're allowing 29.6, which is not bad, ranked 19th in the NHL since the All Star break. So the Bruins are getting outshot, or on this homestand, they were outshot, outscored. Power play was atrocious. The penalty kill, not really much better. So that prompted a shakeup in the bottom 6, like we saw here over the weekend with Oscar Steen being placed on waivers for the purpose of assignment. He was sent down to Providence this morning. Justin Brazeau was signed to the 2-year, 2-way contract, and he was given an assignment on the 4th line alongside Jesper Boqvist and Anthony Richard, with Jacob Lauko taking a seat. Now, you could argue that maybe Boqvist, despite the fact that he's got 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points in 21 games, maybe not well suited for that role because his face-off percentage is not really all that strong. He does have a career high success rate this season of 42.6, but 36.7 throughout his career, and not exactly the most proficient in the dots. Now, could they have been better off with John Beecher in that role? Perhaps, but they didn't have the cap space because they had yet to put Matt Poitras on LTIR. They did that here this morning, and instead of recalling a forward, they recalled a defenseman in Mason Lohrei. So at the moment, they have 13 forwards, 8 defensemen, and 2 goalies up. And there are some concerns about Hampus Lindholm because he was banged up in Monday's game against the Dallas Stars, and perhaps he may be unavailable for the beginning of this road trip. The fact that Lohrei was recalled instead of a forward signals that Lindholm might indeed miss some time. The Bruins on Saturday, we didn't really touch on that game, but against the Los Angeles Kings, it was another one of those games where they had a late lead and then just could not hold on and eventually coughed up that extra point. The Bruins were leading in the third period thanks to a Trent Frederick goal, but Anze Kopitar was left wide open in front of the net for some reason. He tied it at 18:25, and then Brant Clark took a penalty in overtime that the Kings were able to kill off, and he scored on a breakaway coming out of the penalty box, in which I didn't really love Linus Ullmark's play on that one. In fact, our 9-year-old son, we were watching the game, and he said, "Why did the goalie fall on his back like a turtle?" Which was a fair commentary. So the Bruins dropped points in that one, prompted the roster change with Steen out, Brazeau in, and now they have an unlikely fourth line of Richard, Brazeau, and Boqvist. With Lauko as your extra forward, you now have 2 extra defensemen up in Parker Witherspoon and Mason Lohrei, and that could be a result of Lindholm being banged up and perhaps maybe needing a replacement here as they head out on this road trip. So overall, it wasn't the best homestand for the Boston Bruins. They now are just 1 point up on the Florida Panthers, but Florida has 1 game in hand. And if you go by point percentage, Florida has the advantage, 691 versus 688. Florida's goal differential is also plus 50. Boston's is plus 39. But here's the thing. And Florida, I should add, is on a 5-game winning streak, 9-1 over the last 10. The Bruins are 4-4-2. But here's the thing. If you came into this season expecting Boston to be tops in the Atlantic, tops in the East, tops, challenging for first overall, your expectations were probably a little too high. Despite this homestand, the Bruins are still only 3 points back of Vancouver with a game in hand. So they are currently third overall in terms of point percentage, second in points. Their goal differential, they're dropped down to fourth, with Dallas at plus 40, Boston's at plus 39. So if your expectations were that the Bruins were going to be this good all season long, well, you were probably overreaching a bit, because if you look at regulation wins, the Bruins are maybe just outside the top 10, or inside the top 10, I should say. They have 26 regulation wins, which is fewer than Vancouver, Florida, Colorado, Winnipeg, the Rangers, the Hurricanes, and the Oilers. So they're right there amid some of the better teams in the NHL this season, but to be surprised that Florida's overtaken them or to be angry about it, I mean, you come into the season expecting Boston to maybe be in a wild card spot, maybe top 3 in the Atlantic, but after how last season went, you expected Florida to still be pretty good. Toronto, Tampa, you can still argue how great those teams are overall. They're not really in the mix for top spot in the Atlantic. Toronto's 9 points back of Florida, 11 points back of Boston still. So a lot of room still. Boston still up top, in line to be getting home ice advantage in round 1 for whatever, that's worth. But to be angry or surprised that they're falling back a bit, I mean, it should be expected based on how the roster is constructed and all the players they lost after last season, and the fact that Florida is a really good hockey team. So the Bruins now have a chance to go on the road, maybe do a little bonding and come together as a team, ride in this high from this win. And we'll discuss what's coming up for this team here as the podcast continues. All right, I'm going to a concert this weekend, and the first place I looked for tickets was Game Time. It is the best app for all your ticketing needs for sports, music, comedy, and theater near you this year. They have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and a best price guarantee. They take all the guesswork out of buying tickets. You can get the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect. And their game time guarantee means you'll get the best price every time. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download Game Time, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off at Game Time. Last minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. The Bruins are traveling to Edmonton today, where they will begin a 4-game Western Conference road trip beginning tomorrow night. And it's a bit of a gauntlet that they're facing here coming up. They are coming off 3 games against Western Conference opponents where they went 0-1-2. They lost in 4-1 to Seattle, then lost in overtime to the Kings, won in a shootout against the Stars. On Wednesday, they will take on Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and the Edmonton Oilers, a team that struggled early on but have been just red hot as of late, coming off almost a near NHL record win streak. They have fallen off a little bit since then, going only they're 6-3-1 over their last 10, 70 points. 67 points, and have won 2 in a row. So obviously that will be a huge challenge for the Boston Bruins. And then they'll have a back-to-back situation. They'll be taking on the Calgary Flames on Thursday before heading to Vancouver on Saturday to take on the Canucks, who are first place in the NHL. They're coming off a wild game, no pun intended, against Minnesota yesterday, where I think Minnesota scored like 7 unanswered in the third period, 3 hat tricks in that game among the two teams. Thankfully, that will be an early start, a 4 p.m. local time start, 7 p.m. for us. But then the Bruins are heading to touch south, where they will take on the Kraken once again next Monday. And it doesn't get much easier coming home from that either. Once they're done with Seattle, they get a couple of days off and finish off the month of February with a February 29th leap year game. So that is bound to be nuts against Bruce Cassidy and the Vegas Golden Knights. Following that, the Islanders, who are fighting for a playoff spot. The Leafs and Oilers back-to-back in the beginning of March. They play the Leafs twice in 1 week. The Penguins, who are fighting for their lives. The Blues, who are coming on. So the next several games will not be very easy on the Bruins, and this could be kind of a season-defining stretch for this team. They had the hot start. They've been riding that for a while and kind of dining out on those, 14 points in the first 7 games that they amassed. Can they keep it going? Are they a legit team to be reckoned with, or are they kind of living on smoke and mirrors at the moment? Will there be some more changes? If Hampus Lindholm is injured for some time, can Mason Lohrei step up and maybe become a positive disruptor on the blue line? Will they send another forward down and maybe recall a Fabian Lysell, who's been lights out lately for AHL Providence? We're going to have to wait and see, but it's going to be a big test, this road trip for the Bruins. And sometimes these trips are a positive. Again, they can, they've been home for a long time, kind of coming to the rink and then dispersing. When you're on the road, there's more camaraderie, there's more team building, there's more fellowship, going out for team dinners. Sometimes that can bring the group together, especially when there's some newer faces in the mix, like Richard, Brazeau, even Boqvist to a certain extent. It could be a good thing for these guys, and some youthful exuberance in Brazeau, Lori coming up could inspire them as well. So I'm really excited to see how things go for the team on this road trip. And you can follow along every day here on Locked On Boston Bruins because we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every day. I hope your week is off to a great start. I hope you're taking care of yourselves, taking care of each other, and we'll be back tomorrow to preview the game against the Oilers and bring you all the latest on the black and gold here on Locked On Boston Bruins.